welcome back to the Solitary Practice Podcast. This week, it's going to be a little bit of a hodgepodge. I have a small list of different things I've thought of that I wanted to kind of mention or could talk about this week. And I'm going to jump right in first with what I've been doing in a magical sense for the week. The land is dormant right now. The trees are asleep. Animals are pretty settled. Everything is fairly quiet. The first thing probably I should address is I need to get rid of my deer funnel. I have the one work here that kind of encourages any deer that come on the property to stay here. It's been hunting season for quite a while. It's normally a very effective spell, I guess we're gonna call it. And I've used it for many years. As you know, we're sensing a growing trend here. This is a project that I have done for many years. It's a long-standing piece of work, and as with all of my other ones, if you're listening for a while, you'll notice the trend here. It's gotten out of hand. Like it tends to, I don't know if I have leveled up or if it's just that it's growing in strength over time, but there were like 37 deer wandering around the field yesterday. They look like cattle. It's unreal. And at some point, somebody is, I mean, it's a benefit that we live in the middle of the forest and there are no neighbors and nobody can actually see it. But if anybody was to drive up the road, and now that it's snowing, we have plow trucks and things that come up here, they're going to notice, like, one deer, nobody would think twice about. 2 deer, you could pass it off. 37 deer cannot be passed off as a whoopsie doodle. And the thing is I can't even keep these things in the woods. There are probably more in the woods that I just don't even know about. But these things are coming right out in the field with the livestock and just kind of milling about. They're not really eating anything. They're just hanging out. So I need to get rid of these deer. The only thing is there's a week left in hunting season, and basically I am trying to protect them so they don't get shot. I don't know. I'd like to take it down now, but I think I'm going to hold off and try to make it's one more week. I'm pretty sure I can kind of suck it up, Buttercup, and get through it, but it is absolutely bizarre. If you open the door at night to let the dog out, it looks like the parting of the waters, like deer just like go in every different direction and open up a wide area, and then you and the dog can come out through the middle. It's wild. They broke into a shed the other day. They're trying to basically get to the chicken food. It's quite the shindig here. They have plenty of browse. There's literally hundreds of acres here. They have food. It's not a we need food, we need water situation. If they really wanted to leave, they could, because I've seen some of them do it. But earlier in the season, one of them ventured off and was immediately shot. It was very small, very, very small. I personally would consider it a fawn. But anyway, it was shot, and it was like not 10 feet from the property line. And I don't know if the rest of them took that as a message or what, but literally nobody's leaving right now. And it's kind of wild out there. So I need to basically take that work down for the season. And I was talking about this with another practitioner this morning, but I'm going to stick it out, I think, for another week, but it really, really needs to go. The land is no help with this right now. It is completely dormant. It's just me trying to talk sensibly to these deer in a magical fashion. And let's just say they've decided to give me the cold shoulder on that one. They've got it good. There is food here. There is water here. Nobody bothers them, and they pretty much have the run of the place. So yeah, why would they want to leave? But anyway, while the land is dormant, I tend to use this time of year as an opportunity to both rest myself, so to speak, and to strengthen up that tie that I have with it. Clearly, long-standing contract, and if we're looking at all these other works, long-standing things are only getting stronger with time. And I'm out here for, I don't know, whatever reason. It seems like a good idea. Every year, strengthening it some more. This is the time of year when I get to do all my fun stuff, like the magical projects that I want to do. This right now is the time in which I would be doing them, so that everything is quiet and I can really focus on building and creation, or whatever I have that I want to happen. The land isn't like distracting me. I don't have to have kind of like an ear on it. If you're a parent, you're kind of working in the house, but you always got an ear out for your kids, because if it gets silent, there's a problem. It's supposed to be silent right now, so that's good. And I can kind of focus. On the other hand, it is silent right now. And I have an obligation to take care of the land and the various entities, land spirits, whatever you want to call it. I am tied to this place, and I have given a commitment to take care of it. So it can't tell me right now if something is going wrong. It's dormant. It's so sluggish and so slow that even if something horrific went wrong, it would take too long for it to tell me that something was wrong. So I have to basically kind of stand guard. And it's not that I expect anything big to go wrong. It will be something small and something foolish, more than likely, if anything decides to go. So what I have been doing is each night, as part of my getting ready to go to sleep, I don't know, ritual. It's not really a ritual, but it's just my little, before bed, I do all of these things. One of the things that I do is I like to take, I guess we're going to call it like essentially my magical fingertips, and not the tips of your fingers by your nails, but like the pads of your fingers. Maybe this is overkill. Maybe you don't need that much specifics. Well, you're getting it anyway. So anyway, take the pads of my fingers magically, not literally. And I am taking that and basically extending it into the local energies, particularly the land energies, because that's what I'm really looking for. When I'm bringing myself into contact with the land, I'm doing it in such a way that there's not even a tiny ripple. So if you imagine taking your literal hand and touching water, it'd be a similar kind of sensation. And so I'm gently, I guess, sampling the energy to see, where are we? Everything good? So far, everything has been fine. There's nothing to really worry about or contemplate. And then from there, I am just basically submerging myself into the local energies. Now, this is not a fast process. I am not looking to make a splash. Again, it's dormant. A big ruckus like that is going to cause more problems than it's worth. I'm not looking to cause problems. I'm looking to prevent problems. So it's a slow integration of myself into the local energies. I think it's slow. Outsiders would probably think it was fast. It may take me a minute, maybe two, to get fully integrated. It's a nice, smooth slide into the local energies. I have been doing this for years, so at this point, it's pretty old hat. And then from there, well, you're formless, so it's very easy to just kind of like spread yourself then out and check everything. And then basically that's what I'm doing. I'm just checking everything to make sure it's the same as it was yesterday. It's not like if something went wrong, it would be a sudden, I don't know, flash in the pan kind of thing. Not to say that that can't happen. Like there can always be, some crazy thing happening, but usually this time of year, if something is starting to go wrong, it's extremely subtle. And honestly, most times when things start to go wrong, it's so subtle that people miss it. So I am just basically allowing myself to sit with, or in, I guess in would be the better term, is sit in the land energies and just know what they should be and how they should, I don't know, feel, for lack of a better word. What is normal? And it's one of those things where you do it every day, every single day, all the time. And I've been doing this for years, so I know exactly what it should feel like based on, weather, temperature, those kind of things. How should the land and the local energies feel at this time of year under these circumstances? That's a lexicon you just build over time. From there, say the next day I do the same thing, but something's a little different in one spot. Okay, we make a note of that. The next day we come back in. One of the first things we'll check is that little oddity. Is it bigger? Is it smaller? Is it different? Is it the same? How does everything else around it? And you're just going down through your lexicon and finding out if anything's different. If it is consistently different and getting larger, then you know you're going to have a problem. As with a patient under anesthesia, sometimes it's a lot easier if you've got to surgically extract something when they're not worried about it or anxious or any of those kind of things. Again, it's just a lot of monitoring. Nothing is going on right now. So once your initial monitoring is done, I guess I could leave. I don't. I usually stay most, if not all, the night completely immersed in it. And I'll do it during the day too if I have time, because there's some differences between daytime and nighttime. It's easier for me to work at night because I'm less interrupted. People go to sleep. I don't necessarily get to do that as often as my mundane counterparts. I tend to stay up and work at night when I won't be interrupted, but I also take opportunities during the day to do the same thing and just monitor it. One of the benefits of that is the land is very familiar with me. I'm very familiar with it. We're bonded pretty tight together. That's not something that happened fast. It was over a period of years, but we're very sensitive to each other. I'm never really fully separate from it, and it's never really separate from me. So I don't know, we've got some kind of like symbiotic relationship there going on. But over time, the land, I guess I'm going to say it starts to trust you. And trust is not the right word for it, but it's close enough. So it starts to trust you. It grows confident that you're looking out for it. It grows confident that you have its best interest at heart. Also, something that looks after it on that level is a little hard to come by. There's nobody else running around here doing that. Makes it a little protective over you. And I find that that is a good thing because it wants to preserve me so I get what I want. A lot of times it will take care of things for me. And when I say I get what I want, I am not looking for like the winning lottery ticket here. Usually I would prefer the rain to hold off for an hour so I can get hay in the barn, which, benefits the animals, which benefits the land. So anyway, doing a lot of that, just hanging out in the land and enjoying it. I was outside last night and, it's crisp, dark. The constellations are up. This is a great time of year for some of my favored constellations. So I was standing outside. There's not really anything in the way of light pollution here. It's fabulous when you look up because it really does go up and up and up. And there was the largest ring around the moon I've seen in quite some time, which makes sense. I was expecting a storm. If you're paying attention energetically over to the west, you can kind of feel that heavy weight of the low moving in. Temperature-wise, it's clear it's going to be a snowstorm, and it's going to kind of be a solid snowstorm of consequence, so to speak. And it started snowing probably in the early hours of the morning. Schools have been closed down. We've gotten a substantial amount of snow to the point where everybody has just given up on trying to plow out and they're going to deal with it when it's over. It's been a great day. Very, very quiet, which led me to start thinking about silence and stillness, which are big for me in my practice. I am a firm believer that being able to be still and being able to be silent are probably two of the biggest linchpins in a practice. That if you can do those things, you can accomplish pretty much anything. It goes against human nature to be still and to be silent, but much like a fawn who lies still and silent when his mother is gone, and usually lives to see another day, if you are working magically, I find that it is very important to learn the value of being silent and being still. Now, we all know to know, to will, to dare, to be silent, 4 rules. I've found that being silent is probably the most important rule. It's also incredibly difficult for people. People want to interact with other people. They want to know what they know. They want to talk. They want to converse. They want to interact. That might be why I'm not a people person. I don't particularly care for all of that. But there is a power in being able to be silent. So if you are not talking, in theory, you are able to listen. Certainly, you can listen better if you are not trying to orate about whatever is the subject of conversation. If you are silent, you are more likely to be able to listen. Also, if you are not actively engaging the conversation, you are not listening to answer. You are, in theory, listening to listen. When you listen to listen, that's when you start picking up on subtext and start picking up on things that you might otherwise miss. So if you are trying to actively take part in a conversation, you could miss turns of phrase or different things that the person talking conveys because you're in such a hurry to continue the dialogue. Don't be in a hurry to continue the dialogue. Honestly, it takes a pretty strong person to just sit in silence. Then the other thing that's important is just being able to be still. Most people are not able to be still. To sit without motion, magically, physically, pick your pick, either or, can be extremely difficult for many, many people. They struggle with it. We have magical ability. You want to change things, you want to do things, you want to make things happen. And it's kind of instinctive, I think, okay, we're going to practice magic. Practice implies some form of movement. But sometimes it is better not to move. Judgment is a huge thing. You have to have decent judgment. For example, if somebody's going through a rough patch of whatever, I don't know, you can make something up, but whatever reason, you're going through a rough patch, you have magic at your disposal. The instinct is to take magic and use it to fix it, to fix your problem. I try not to do that. I don't know. I don't like to use magic to fix my problems, and particularly mundane problems. I don't really have too much. I'm kind of struggling to come up with an example because, again, I sit still and I'm quiet, and therefore I can see how things are going and what's going to happen in the future. And so you just kind of go prepare for that. Will there be little hiccups? Yes. But are there giant preventable catastrophes that I missed because I was too busy doing other things? Not generally, no. So it's better to just kind of not run out and start making spells and doing magic to fix all these little things. The other thing is that if you're going to be a clean, I want to say strong, but I don't think that's quite the right word. But if you're going to run a real streamlined, efficient, clean practice, you're being careful that when you do work, it has the least ripple effect possible. If you are, I don't know, something goes wrong and you do a spell to fix that, then that has, because you weren't really evaluating it by sitting still and really looking at it, it causes other problems. So then you're doing more spell work to fix those problems. And the whole thing can spiral wildly out of control very, very quickly. And in the end, it's like this demolished hodgepodge of just craziness. And you're like, well, that didn't work. No, it didn't. And now we have a magical train wreck on our hands. And in all likelihood, it has spilled out and affected, I don't know, so many other things. I couldn't even put a number on it. It would depend on what you did, but it is better to use magic like a scalpel than a club. I don't know if that makes sense, but just being still. I know that there's a compulsion to act. There are days when I'm like, oh, I'm still going to fix that. But I always manage to stop myself because I learned very long ago to be still. So be still and be silent. They're probably the linchpins of my own practice. I cannot advocate for them enough. A lot of times when you're being still and silent and you're looking at things, it also helps you really evaluate what it is you're looking at. If you can kind of remove yourself from being involved in it, I want to say go look up Stoicism, and that we could use some more Stoics as magical practitioners, but I'm not sure that that would be a very popular thing. I think it's true, but I don't think it'd be very popular. People are not too fond of throwing it all away and becoming Stoics. But one of the things, as you're being still and silent and you're looking at things, to really look at them and comprehend them. For magic practice, everybody's like, well, we need to study. Yes, but not books. You need to study what's around you. You start looking around you and you're starting to pick up on, I don't know, everything. You're picking up on how the world works around you, how it actually works, not your interpretation based on a 30-second snippet of what you saw. But again, if you're deploying all those senses I talked about, I think it was last week, you're starting to pick up on all the subtext. And from there, you could start dialing your attention in on the magical world around you. So you're going to start picking up on energy. You're going to start picking up on communications you might otherwise miss. So like, I don't know, the door to my right. That actually has the ability to tell me all sorts of stuff. If I wanted to dial in on it, I'm not going to do anything with the door. The door isn't going to do anything for me. I'm not going to interfere with the door, but the door could tell me all sorts of stuff. And if I sit still and listen to it, who knows what it would tell me. And not that this particular door has anything pivotal to say, but maybe the birds in the trees will be able to give information. The bees in the hive certainly bring back a lot of information. All I have to do is sit still and listen. And so you can learn lots and lots of things like that. That's studying. Reading books that were mass produced and shipped out, it is studying, but it's not the kind of studying that's going to get you higher up in the cosmic levels. I don't even know what you want to call that. When I learned how to be still and be silent, I was able to truly focus, and I guess I'm looking at it here basically on a magical level, and I can see it. I just don't really know how to describe it, but essentially that stillness and that silence gave me a certain level of strength that allowed me to access things that I previously did not have access to. No book in the world is ever going to teach you how to do that. That is purely something that you have to study and learn on your own. But again, if you're still and you're quiet, the answer is probably right in front of you. You just have to find it. And I would say that would be a great segue into the next thing on my list, which is that the answer is right in front of you. 99% of the time, the answer is right there. Whatever your question is, doesn't matter. The answer's there. You're just not seeing it. For example, years ago, I was working on the construction of a defensive mechanism, and I wanted it to be able to repel something God level or above. And when you get up into God level and above, that's a lot of power and might, I guess we're going to call it, that they could be tossing at you. So I'm not looking to repel Joe Schmo practitioner down the street somewhere. I am looking God level and above. This thing has to be very solid. And so I was contemplating how I would do that. If I was going to build it, how would I build it? And that went on for quite some time. It was probably a couple of weeks. I fiddled with different ideas, but bottom line is God level and above is a lot of power. And making something that would cause something at that level to take a step back and be like, you know what, I don't want to play with that. It would have to be pretty, I guess I was thinking it was going to need to be very substantial. And I was thinking that it needed to be kind of heavy. And I, at the time, had not reached the point where I pretty much had unlimited and untapped amounts of energy to play with. So, finite resources, had to find a way to basically fuel that and make it withstand all the tests. Because, of course, I'm going to run things through product testing. Product testing is probably the funnest part of magical creation. And so I was sitting out on the lawn and just kind of idly, it was a hot summer afternoon, and sitting in the shade, just thinking about different ways I could construct this. And I was kind of getting to the point where basically none of the ideas that I had were going to work. I just could not figure out how I could construct it and make it withstand something that potentially strong when I had, and I use this term loosely, such limited resources. As I sat there, I was, just watching the horses. We do a rotational grazing thing. And so we have like movable fence posts and a 1-inch wide strand of white electric fencing. And then we move them all the time. And it's kind of pleasant on a hot afternoon to sit out under the shade of the tree in the front lawn and just watch the horses graze. While I was thinking about this, there was a horse that was not too far from the fence. The horses had learned, obviously, that they wanted to stay a couple feet away from the fence. They respected it. The fence was a very strong electric fence. It was geared more for cattle, because sometimes we use it for cows, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so the horses always gave it a couple feet of space just to be sure that they wouldn't touch it. This one particular horse, cropping grass, just working along down the fence line. The wind decided to blow a little, and when the wind blew, the horse's tail blew in the wind and touched the fence. You can imagine the effect that had. The horse flew back off of there. Holy cow, that was horrible. I will never ever touch that again. And after the horse kind of like shook it off, it went back to grazing down through there, but now it stayed 5 feet off the fence. Like it was going to be 100% sure that there was no way on earth that it would in any way, shape, or form take a chance of ever touching that fence again. It was a lesson learned. And I thought to myself, that's exactly what I want God level or above to do. I want them to hit this thing and be like, wow, never going to touch that again. And obviously the answer was right in front of me, kind of literally. And I got to think about that. I'm like, well, I do like that idea, but I don't like the fact that with an electric fence, the power shoots off the fence into the animal, blows the animal back off the fence. I don't have the kind of power, or I didn't at the time anyway, to keep a sustained amount of zaps, I guess. So, you could maybe zap them once, but I'm not going to have a ton of zaps available, and who knows how many I'll need. I always assume that the worst is going to happen, and, it's going to be a multi-pronged approach and, crushing forces, et cetera, et cetera. Always plan for the worst. Then you're less surprised by how things go. So as I sat there, I got to thinking about that electric fence, and I thought, Well, the problem here is, well, partially that I don't have a ton of power, but the other aspect of the problem is that they have so much power. And you could probably see where my thought process went on this one. Because if I don't have enough power, but they've got so much power, why am I not taking theirs? Which led to the reverse electric fence. So instead of a sudden, painful jolt of power jumping out from the point of contact from the barrier into whatever's touching it, I decided to go the other way, and that when the barrier was touched, there would be a sudden, painful suction, for lack of a better term, of energy from whatever touches it. So it will immediately drain it. I had plenty enough power to spark an immediate drainage. And then, of course, it becomes stronger because it just pulled off a ton of energy. Now, there's converters and stuff that have to go in there to really make it truly effective. But essentially, if God level smacked into this barrier or touched it for whatever reason, it was going to do an extremely painful withdrawal of energy. And it's going to be very sudden and it's going to be very forceful. So that the idea is if suddenly something has touched it, usually they tend to expect an attack rather than a withdrawal. And so I have this thing built. There's a lot more to it than that. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details. I will say that, a lot of things had to be tweaked because my initial thought was, well, I could use that to power more things. Or what am I going to do with this power? But then, of course, I got into the more practical realities of handling power on that level. And I need to not burn things out. Things have to be reinforced, storage, components, and everything like that. It spawned several months of development, survived testing better than I hoped. I was kind of surprised. There were a couple little things I had to tweak. Not necessarily with the initial drainage point, but with the storage system and how that was going to work. But again, the answer was right in front of me the entire time. I just needed to look at it a little bit different than what I was looking at. So if you're struggling with, I don't know, whatever the problem is, I would highly recommend, and it's probably not going to hurt to do so. I mean, there are very few life and limb emergency situations where you can't spare a little time to sit still, be quiet, start looking around and really thinking about what's around you, what you see, what's going on, and try to draw some context clues out of that to see if any of that will help you with your problem. I don't know if it'll work for anybody else. Works wonders for me. But the answer is always in front of me if I'm really looking for it. The universe provides, essentially. So I think that's pretty much the big stuff. I will get into my rumination on the dishes at some point. I don't know exactly when. So I'm going to stop here. If you enjoyed the episode, please feel free to share it. If you have questions or something you want me to talk more about, you could absolutely reach out to me through my website, thesolitarypractice.com. I've had a few inquiries, some great conversation with one or two folks. I appreciate that feedback. This is definitely not a polished commercial podcast, and I know that. This is just me basically sitting in a closet monologuing about my own magical practice and whatever I'm thinking of on that particular day. I understand that in many podcasts, scripting and heavy editing is very popular. I prefer a more authentic version, I guess. Anyway, thanks again, and I will see you next week.